The unexpected beginning. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in the small town of Millbrook, nestled between rolling hills and towering oaks. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue across the school's soccer field where the most anticipated event of the year was about to unfold, a dodgeball championship. The middle school gym was buzzing with excitement, but little did anyone know that this game would take a turn that would alter the course of history. I was just a typical 13-year-old, doing my best to concentrate on the game. It was down to the final three of us. Me, my best friend Alex, and Sarah, the team captain, facing off against the undefeated champions from Riverside Middle School. We were nervous but determined. The referee blew the whistle, and with a collective cheer, the game resumed. But suddenly, everything changed. A shadow loomed over the field. At first, we thought it was some sort of prank, maybe a weather balloon or a strange reflection from a drone overhead. But then the object began descending from the sky, sleek and metallic, casting a shimmering light in the afternoon sun. The students fell silent, eyes wide in awe and confusion. It wasn't long before the object touched the ground with a soft thud, and the air seemed to hum with a strange energy. Principal Chen's voice crackled over the PA system, urging everyone to remain calm and stay where they were. But how could anyone stay calm? The sphere before us shimmered and rippled like liquid mercury, its surface shifting and unfolding like the petals of an alien flower. Out of the craft stepped beings that looked almost human, but not quite. Their skin shimmered with a bluish hue, and their movements were unnaturally fluid, too precise to be natural. As we stood frozen, unsure of what to do, one of the aliens approached the game. "Excuse me," it said in perfect English, its voice calm but filled with curiosity. "This appears to be a projectile-based recreational activity. May we participate?" That was the beginning of the most extraordinary game of dodgeball in the history of humankind. What followed would not only change the course of Earth's first contact with another civilization, but would also ignite the spark of something far greater, an unforgettable tale of unity, resilience, and the universal language of sport. The alien visitors. The aliens' arrival felt surreal. They didn't seem menacing or hostile, yet the unknown nature of their existence left the entire school in stunned silence. They stood there, silent observers of our human rituals, taking in the scene with a mixture of curiosity and analytical precision. The game, which had been so simple just moments before, now seemed trivial in the face of something so extraordinary. The alien who first spoke to us, who had introduced himself with a polite inquiry into the game, bent down once more, this time picking up another dodgeball. It was clear they were fascinated by this strange earthly object. His elongated fingers grasped the rubber ball with such ease that it seemed almost effortless. With a tilt of his head, he looked at it again, as if trying to comprehend its significance. "The velocity of the projectile and the impact force are of great interest," he said. "Is this a test of agility or endurance?" I glanced at my teammates. This wasn't exactly the dodgeball match we had envisioned. But then again, I had no idea what I was dealing with. Were these beings from another planet? Could they be studying us? Or was this some kind of cosmic coincidence that we would be the first humans to make contact? We were all standing on the precipice of a new chapter in human history, and it felt like we were about to jump into an unknown abyss. "We play to test our reflexes and strategy," I said hesitantly, not sure how much these beings would understand. "It's a team game. You try to hit the opposing team with the ball, and if you get hit, you're out. The last team standing wins." The alien nodded, its blue skin shimmering slightly as the sunlight reflected off of it. "We understand. The game is based on an interaction of calculated precision, a fascinating display of cooperation, physical prowess, and decision-making under pressure. We wish to participate." I looked over at Alex, who was now standing next to me, completely in shock but unable to hide his wide grin. "I guess this is happening," he muttered. Sarah, our team captain, had been quiet up until that moment. She stepped forward, her eyes never leaving the aliens as she assessed the situation. Sarah had always been the strategic thinker of our team, someone who kept calm even in the most chaotic situations. And yet, nothing could have prepared us for this moment. "Well, if you want to join, you'll have to learn the rules," she said firmly, but with a hint of curiosity in her voice. "It's a fast-paced game. We'll teach you the basics as we go." One of the aliens extended a hand, an odd gesture of agreement. Their hands, long and delicate, looked almost like they could slip through the air without disturbing it, but they were surprisingly strong. I couldn't help but notice how their eyes, although alien in structure, conveyed a sense of intelligence and curiosity. I glanced at Sarah, who nodded, signaling that we should get the game moving again. With a new sense of urgency, we all took our positions. Me, Alex, Sarah, and now, the aliens. The Riverside team, still stunned, had been watching us intently, trying to make sense of what was happening. It was clear they didn't know how to react. How do you compete against beings that come from the stars? I couldn't believe it was happening. Our team, once nervous and unsure of our own abilities, now had the ultimate advantage. These aliens, who seemingly had no problem with physics and were capable of feats we couldn't comprehend, were now on our side. Or were they? I could tell the Riverside team wasn't backing down, and I respected them for it. They looked as confused as we were, but their competitive spirit refused to be extinguished. The referee, who had been as silent as the rest of us, blew his whistle once again. The game resumed, but now the atmosphere was charged with a new intensity. The aliens, having taken their places on the field, began to observe our every move closely. Their sharp eyes tracked every throw, every dodge, as they analyzed our human tactics with calculating precision. It was incredible. Despite their otherworldly abilities, they still needed to adapt. They began by simply watching, then by testing out small movements, learning to throw the ball without overexerting themselves. One of the aliens took a throw, launching it in a direct, perfectly calculated line at one of the Riverside players. The ball zipped through the air with impressive speed, but the Riverside player dodged just in time, barely escaping the hit. "Interesting," the alien muttered, its voice low but full of intrigue. The ability to anticipate movement and act accordingly. Fascinating. The game continued, but this time, it wasn't just a competition. It was a learning process for both sides. The Riverside team began to adapt as well, seeing that the aliens weren't invincible. They were skilled, yes, but not perfect. The balance shifted. They could calculate trajectories and velocities, but they lacked the instinctive reactions that come from years of practice, from the unpredictability of human experience. It was during one of these exchanges, where Sarah's quick thinking caught an alien off guard, that I realized something profound. The game was no longer just about victory. It wasn't just about winning or losing. It was about something far more important: understanding. The aliens were learning our ways, and in return, we were learning theirs. It was during one of these moments that I noticed how our alien teammates were starting to enjoy themselves. As we played, they began to show signs of what could only be described as camaraderie. At first, it was hard to read their expressions, but gradually their movements became more fluid, more natural. They started passing the ball between themselves, playing not just to win, but to connect with us. This wasn't just a game. This was an exchange of cultures, an exchange of minds, and in a way, it felt like the first true interaction between our species. As we laughed and joked with each other, I realized that this simple, silly game of dodgeball had become the stage for something that would change the world forever. The Riverside team, though initially confused, began to fight back with renewed energy. The competition now felt like a true challenge, and we could see the respect in their eyes. It was clear that both teams, humans and aliens alike, had come to understand something vital about each other. And so, as the game progressed, the simple schoolyard sport had become a true battlefield of wits, skill, and understanding. With each throw, with each dodge, We were not just competing for the championship title. We were forging a connection that transcended the boundaries of planets, species, and cultures. What had started as a regular dodgeball game was now something much bigger. It was a lesson in unity, a display of humanity's resilience, and a testament to the power of curiosity. Our alien guests were no longer strangers. They were our teammates, our partners, and, in a sense, our equals. And as the game continued, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held for this newfound alliance. A battle of wits and will. The game had taken on a life of its own. No longer was it a simple middle school dodgeball match, nor was it simply humans versus aliens. It was a contest of ingenuity, adaptability, and instinct, a thrilling exchange of ideas, skills, and even personalities. The stakes were higher now, not because of the victory, but because of the bond that was slowly being built between us and the extraterrestrial visitors. Every throw of the ball, every dodge, became a communication in itself, a dialogue between species that transcended words. The Riverside team, initially shell-shocked by the arrival of the aliens, had recovered their competitive spirit. They had regrouped, shaking off their confusion, and had adopted a new strategy. They began to work in pairs, using distraction and misdirection, trying to throw off both our team and the aliens. They knew we were a mixed team now, human and alien, and they figured if they could outwit us, they'd regain control of the game. I could see Sarah watching them carefully, processing their moves, strategizing. We had a new challenge. Not only were we facing off against the Riverside team, but we had to find a way to synchronize our alien teammates' movements with our own. They had the advantage of superior physical abilities, speed, agility, and precision, but they still lacked the human intuition that allowed us to predict the opponent's next move. Alex, ever the risk-taker, darted across the field, dodging 2 incoming balls with quick swerves. The aliens, still learning the rhythm of the game, watched intently. One of them, who had been closest to Alex, tried to mimic his movements, but the attempt was too mechanical. It wasn't until Sarah called out, "Watch his feet," that the alien adjusted, learning to track Alex's body language and anticipate his next move. In that moment, it became clear that while the aliens could analyze data in milliseconds, it was the human instinct, the ability to improvise, that was going to tip the balance in our favor. The Riverside players, seeing that we were becoming more coordinated, began to grow frustrated. They had started out so confidently, their skills honed over countless games. But now, they were up against something entirely new. They were facing an unpredictable force, where the teamwork between humans and aliens was no longer just an experiment. It was becoming a well-oiled machine. A particularly skilled Riverside player, Jordan, launched a ball toward one of the aliens with a swift, powerful throw. The alien saw it coming in an instant but hesitated, unsure of the best way to counter. That's when I did something I'd never done before in a game of dodgeball. Without thinking, I rushed forward, intercepted the ball midair, and sent it hurtling back toward Jordan. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The ball hit Jordan square in the chest with a thud, knocking him out of the game. The crowd of students watching from the sidelines erupted into cheers. But it wasn't just the humans cheering. It was the aliens too. Their movements became more fluid, more instinctive, and with every successful move, their understanding of the game grew deeper. They were no longer just participants. They were active players, and with each passing moment, it became clearer that they were starting to think like us. The aliens' reactions had evolved. Their previous rigid, calculated motions had transformed into a more human-like fluidity. They had learned how to feint, how to throw with a deceptive flick of the wrist, and how to read the angle of a dodge. But more than that, they had started to understand the pulse of the game, the ebb and flow of momentum, the way a player's posture could signal an impending attack, the way an opponent's eyes might give away their next move. These were things that humans, through years of instinctual learning, had come to understand on a subconscious level. And now, the aliens were beginning to pick up on it. But even as we adapted and learned, so did Riverside. They were no longer just reacting to our moves. They were anticipating them. They began to play more aggressively, employing some tactics that we hadn't seen before. One Riverside player, a tall girl named Mia, worked in tandem with her teammate Jake. They began to set up deceptive plays, pretending to launch the ball in one direction, while quickly changing course at the last moment. The strategy was clever, and it started to throw us off balance. We could feel the tide of the game shift, but instead of panicking, Sarah called for a timeout. As we gathered around, we huddled closely, exchanging quick glances and silent calculations. The aliens, too, had become part of the huddle. Though they didn't speak much, their presence was felt, steady and observant, always analyzing. One of the aliens shifted slightly, as if offering its own insights. They use collective misdirection, the alien observed in its calm voice. It is effective, but predictable. We can counter with a synchronized response. We turned to the aliens. They had begun thinking like a team, not just individuals. And it was in that moment that I realized something profound. This game wasn't just about our survival as humans. It was about cooperation, unity, and understanding between two entirely different species. We were no longer divided by our origins. We were a single team, united by a common goal: victory. As we returned to the field, our renewed energy infused the game. We had the aliens by our side now, not as outsiders, but as teammates. They had learned our methods, and we had learned theirs. The game had evolved from something so simple, just a schoolyard competition, into something far more meaningful. And we weren't just playing to win anymore. We were playing to understand each other, to forge a connection that transcended the boundaries of planets, species, and cultures. The next few moments were a blur of intensity and strategy. The Riverside team, feeling the pressure, pushed harder. But we countered, each of us working in sync with our alien teammates. Together, we were unstoppable. Every throw we made was calculated and precise. Every dodge was instinctive, and every play was designed to outsmart our opponents. But the true brilliance of our partnership with the aliens wasn't in our superior throwing abilities. It was in the way we had learned to communicate without words. Every throw, every movement, had become a form of dialogue. Through our actions, we understood each other. We had become more than just humans and aliens. We had become a team, united by our shared desire to play, to learn, and to grow together. As the final moments of the game drew near, the outcome was no longer in question. The Riverside team had fought valiantly, but the bond we had forged with the aliens had turned the tide in our favor. We had learned from each other, grown stronger, and had become something more than just a group of players on a field. We had become something far greater, a symbol of what humanity, and all species, could achieve when they worked together. And when the final whistle blew, signaling the end of the game, there were no losers. The Riverside team stood with us, clapping and cheering, their earlier frustration replaced by admiration. The game wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about the connections we had made, the lessons we had learned, and the understanding we had shared. The aliens, too, seemed pleased with the outcome. Their expressions, though still alien, now filled with what could only be interpreted as contentment. They had come to Earth seeking to understand our ways, and through this simple game of dodgeball, they had done just that. But the biggest surprise of all came when one of the aliens, who had been silent throughout most of the game, stepped forward and said, This has been a remarkable experience. We wish to continue learning. Perhaps we can play again, together, as allies." And just like that, the game of dodgeball had evolved into something far more than a friendly competition. It had become a symbol of cooperation, a testament to the power of learning, adapting, and growing together. And as we walked off the field, I realized that what had started as an unexpected encounter had become the beginning of something truly extraordinary: victory, unity, and the future. The final whistle blew, signaling the end of the game, and for a brief moment, everything felt surreal. We stood there, exhausted, yet elated, our hearts pounding with the excitement of having played the most extraordinary dodgeball game in history. The Riverside team, once fierce competitors, now stood beside us, clapping with genuine respect. Even the aliens, who had only just learned the rules of our strange game, seemed to have absorbed more than just the movements. They seemed to understand something deeper, something that transcended the game itself. The field had quieted, and for a brief moment, all I could hear was the soft rustle of the wind against the grass, the echoes of the students' cheers fading into the background. As I looked around, I saw something remarkable. There was no longer a sense of division between us and the aliens. We had become something more than just players on opposite sides of the field. We had become a team, united by a shared experience, a mutual respect, and the universal understanding that something as simple as a game could bring us together. Principal Chen, who had been standing at the sidelines for the duration of the game, made his way onto the field. His eyes were wide, a look of astonishment still painted across his face. I could tell he had been just as taken aback by the entire event as we were. But in that moment, I could also see a sense of pride in his eyes. He wasn't just witnessing a game. He was witnessing history. "That was incredible," he said, his voice carrying across the field. "I've never seen anything like it. You all have done something truly special today. Not just for our school, but for the world." The words hung in the air like a challenge, a promise that this moment was bigger than any of us could truly grasp. I glanced at the aliens, who were quietly observing the exchange. Their expressions, while still unreadable in many ways, now seemed softer. They had learned something today. They had seen us at our most vulnerable, at our most human. And somehow, in their own way, they had connected with us, not just as beings from another world, but as equals. "Thank you for letting us participate," one of the aliens spoke up, its voice calm but sincere. "We have learned much about your species, about your culture, and your way of thinking. The game of dodgeball has shown us more than your physical prowess. It has shown us your creativity, your ability to adapt, and your capacity for teamwork." It was odd hearing an alien speak with such admiration about something so simple. But in that moment, I realized something. We often think of humanity as being defined by technology, by our advancements, and our ability to conquer new frontiers. But sometimes, the most defining aspects of who we are don't lie in what we can build or discover. They lie in the simplest acts of cooperation and the willingness to learn from one another. Sarah, ever the captain, nodded in agreement. "It wasn't just about winning the game," she said, her voice steady and full of wisdom. "It was about understanding each other. You've shown us what true teamwork looks like, and for that, we're grateful." The alien who had spoken earlier looked down at the ground, as if contemplating Sarah's words. Then, its piercing blue eyes met mine. "We have much to learn still," it said. "And you, humans, are far more complex and capable than we initially assumed. We wish to continue our interactions, not as competitors, but as allies. Our species may be vastly different, but we now see that the strength of your people lies not only in your technology or your physical capabilities. It lies in your creativity, your adaptability, and your willingness to find common ground." It was then that I realized how deeply this moment had changed me. What had started as an unexpected event, an alien encounter during a schoolyard game, had turned into a powerful lesson in unity. We weren't just united by the game of dodgeball. We were united by a shared experience that transcended anything we had known before. We had connected with beings from another world in a way that would be impossible to replicate with words or technology. It wasn't just about surviving the game or learning to adapt to each other's strategies. It was about coming together, finding a way to coexist, and understanding each other's strengths. As the game came to a close, we gathered together with the Riverside team and the aliens, forming a circle in the middle of the field. We were no longer separate entities. The human and alien worlds had collided in a beautiful way, and we had come out stronger, more connected than ever before. What happens now? Alex asked, his voice filled with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. He had always been the adventurous one, the one who would dive into any challenge headfirst. But even he seemed awestruck by the weight of what had just occurred. I could sense that the aliens were equally uncertain. They were explorers, researchers, seeking to understand the human experience. But they had come to learn that there was more to us than they had anticipated. We weren't just an experiment to them. We were equals in this new, shared journey. "We go forward," one of the aliens said, breaking the silence. "Together, we will continue to learn from you, and we will share our knowledge in return. This is not the end, but the beginning of something far greater." The words were simple, yet powerful. And in that moment, I realized that this game, this unexpected encounter, had opened a door to new possibilities, new alliances, and new ways of thinking. We were no longer just humans, stuck in our small corner of the universe. We were part of something much larger. And the aliens, once strangers, were now our partners, our allies. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also full of promise. In that moment, the boundaries between species and worlds seemed less significant. We had learned that we were all capable of greatness, not because of our technology, our intelligence, or our power, but because of our ability to understand, adapt, and work together. And as we stood there, looking out at the horizon, I felt a sense of peace. No matter what challenges lay ahead, I knew one thing for sure. We were no longer alone. The future of humanity, and of our newfound allies, was filled with limitless potential. Together, there was nothing we couldn't achieve. As the aliens prepared to leave, their ship lifting off the ground with a quiet hum, I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of pride. This wasn't just a victory in a game. It was a victory for humanity, for cooperation, and for the power of connection. It was a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected events lead to the greatest breakthroughs. We had faced the unknown, not with fear or hostility, but with curiosity and creativity. And in doing so, we had forged a bond that would shape the future of both our species. The story of that game would live on forever, not just as a chapter in history, but as a symbol of what humanity could achieve when we chose to work together, no matter the odds. And as I walked off the field, I knew that this was just the beginning. The universe was vast, and we had just made our first step into a much larger world. The aftermath and new horizons. As the alien vessel disappeared into the sky, a silence settled over the field that felt almost sacred. We stood there, collectively holding our breath, staring up as the shimmering spacecraft climbed higher, slowly vanishing into the endless expanse of blue. The thrill of the game was still buzzing through our veins, but now, the full weight of what had just transpired began to sink in. The aliens were gone, but something far more significant had remained. An unspoken bond between us and a promise that would change everything we knew about our place in the universe. The students at Millbrook Middle School began to disperse, still murmuring in disbelief and excitement. Some were discussing the game. Others were contemplating what they had just witnessed. But one thing was certain. No one would ever forget the day that humanity's first encounter with aliens came not through grand speeches or a military confrontation, but through something as simple and human as dodgeball. Principal Chen, who had been by the sidelines throughout the entire event, now stood in the middle of the field, looking just as stunned as we were. His usual calm and collected demeanor had faded into something more genuine, a mixture of awe and amazement. He turned to the gathered students, their faces still lit with wonder. "I know you all have a lot of questions," he began, his voice calm but filled with an unmistakable sense of reverence. What just happened here today wasn't just an event for this school. It wasn't just an extraordinary game. This moment is a reflection of something much bigger. We've made contact with beings from another world, not through war or conflict, but through cooperation and understanding. That's something we should all be proud of. His words resonated deeply with all of us. As I stood there, looking around at my friends, Alex, Sarah, and the others. There was no denying that something had shifted. We had just experienced something beyond comprehension, an encounter that no one could have predicted. But now, as strange as it seemed, it felt like the beginning of something new. The future didn't seem as daunting, and the unknown no longer held the same sense of fear. We had just learned that we could face it together. It wasn't long before news of the event began to spread. The game of dodgeball that had turned into the first formal contact between humans and aliens was all over the media. Schools, news channels, and even online forums were flooded with stories of the extraordinary event. But it wasn't just the game that caught people's attention. It was the message behind it, the way humanity had responded. Not with aggression or fear, but with curiosity, respect, and an open mind. As the days passed, experts and scientists scrambled to analyze the footage of the game, trying to understand the technology and biology of the alien visitors. But for many of us, especially those of us who had been on the field, there was something deeper at play than just technology. It was the shared humanity, the fundamental connection that had been made across species. And though the world was eager to dig into the specifics, we knew the truth. We had learned more in those few minutes of dodgeball than any textbook or scientific journal could ever teach. The aliens had made their presence known, but they hadn't come as conquerors or invaders. They hadn't come with weapons or demands. They came with questions, with curiosity. And it was that curiosity that had sparked the connection. We had something in common with them that went beyond language, beyond technology. It was our innate need to understand, to explore, to learn. The game of dodgeball had been the perfect bridge between our worlds, an expression of play, a universal language that transcended cultural and technological differences. As I reflected on everything that had happened, I realized that our lives were about to change in ways we couldn't fully comprehend. The aliens hadn't just left us with memories of an unforgettable game. They had left us with a promise of further exploration, further contact. This was just the beginning. Weeks later, the school district arranged a special assembly. The field where the game had taken place was transformed into a makeshift auditorium. The bleachers were filled with students, parents, and even a few officials from various organizations, all eager to hear about the unprecedented event that had occurred at Millbrook Middle School. The principal began by recounting the day, walking through the details of the game, the arrival of the alien vessel, and the cooperation between our team and the Riverside players. But then, something unexpected happened. As the assembly progressed, an alien ship, a different one, appeared in the sky, descending gently towards the field. This time, we didn't feel the panic or uncertainty we had felt before. We had already formed a connection with these beings, and their arrival wasn't a threat. It was an invitation. The alien craft landed smoothly on the field, and outstepped the same beings who had played with us that fateful day. The crowd fell silent, watching as the aliens made their way toward us. This time, there was no fear, no apprehension. We recognized them as friends, partners in something much greater than a game. One of the aliens, the same one who had spoken to us before, stepped forward. "We have come to further our understanding of your world. Our species has studied many planets, but what we have learned from you, humans, has been unparalleled. Your ability to adapt, to think creatively, to connect with one another. These qualities are what make your species unique. You have shown us that there is more to life than what can be measured by technology or intellect. There is the heart of your people, and it is that which we wish to understand." The words resonated deeply with all of us. The aliens weren't just interested in us for our scientific knowledge or technological advancements. They were interested in us for who we were as people. They wanted to learn not just about our inventions or our systems, but about the very essence of humanity. The creativity, the resilience, the ability to build bridges when there were no paths laid before us. We are here to begin a new chapter, one where we work together to explore new frontiers. The alien continued. Your strength is not in your power or your technology, but in your unity and your ability to embrace the unknown. We have much to offer, and we believe that together we can accomplish things unimaginable to both of our species." The crowd erupted into applause. We stood together, side by side with the aliens, knowing that this moment wasn't just historic. It was the beginning of a new era. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also filled with possibilities. The cooperation between humans and aliens had set the stage for a new kind of exploration, one that was about more than just space travel or scientific discovery. It was about understanding, about sharing, and about growing together. As I stood there with the aliens beside me, I couldn't help but smile. What had started as a simple game of dodgeball had turned into something far greater, a partnership, a friendship, and a shared journey toward the future. The possibilities were endless, and as the crowd continued to cheer, I realized that the game wasn't over. It had only just begun. In the weeks that followed, meetings and discussions were held. Plans were made for future exchanges with the alien species. The bridge that had been built through a game of dodgeball now extended to a new realm of collaboration. Researchers, scientists, and cultural experts began to work alongside the aliens, learning from one another and sharing knowledge. The game of dodgeball, though still remembered fondly by the people of Millbrook, had become a symbol of what could be achieved when different worlds came together in the spirit of cooperation. And for me, I knew this experience would shape the rest of my life. This was only the beginning. Together, humans and aliens would face the challenges of the future, hand in hand, ready to explore new horizons, new bonds, and shared purpose. As weeks passed, the presence of the aliens in our daily lives became increasingly normalized. Their technological advancements were astounding, and scientists from all over the world began working with them to study the alien ship that had landed in Millbrook. The excitement of the game had started to give way to more serious collaboration. What began as an extraordinary encounter had now evolved into a structured effort to understand the technology, culture, and intentions of the beings who had visited us. Humanity, in all its diversity, had always prided itself on its ingenuity. Yet, we had now found ourselves facing a challenge that required more than just technological innovation or academic knowledge. It required understanding the alien species on a deeper level. The questions surrounding their motives and their future plans were vast, but we had made a start. Learning their way of communication, understanding their species' principles, and recognizing that this was not just an opportunity for scientific discovery, but an invitation for global cooperation. The aliens had made it clear that their interest was not purely scientific. They had come to us as a species seeking partnership, learning from what made us uniquely human. Their technology, far beyond ours, could have led them to dominate us, but they had chosen a different path. They saw value in humanity's creativity, adaptability, and ability to solve complex problems together. With each new meeting, more and more human representatives gathered, working alongside the aliens to establish frameworks for cooperation. Earth's leaders, scientists, and innovators were involved in diplomatic talks, cautiously optimistic that this partnership could bring about profound change for all of humanity. Many, however, harbored doubts. Could we truly trust the aliens, or was there more to their visit than they were letting on? Despite the skeptics, the tone of cooperation was undeniable. Trust was built slowly, one exchange at a time. The aliens shared insights into their own histories, revealing stories of their civilization's growth and their journeys across the stars. They spoke of the importance of balance between technology and culture, of the lessons they had learned over millennia, and how they believed the human race had the potential to achieve greatness, provided we remained true to the values that made us human. At the heart of this new partnership was the realization that the true strength of both species lay not in their differences, but in their ability to adapt, to learn, and to collaborate. The aliens had learned from our game of dodgeball, understanding that strategy, teamwork, and improvisation were just as vital as technology and raw intelligence. We, in turn, began to recognize the importance of their technological knowledge, the promise of working together to solve the world's most pressing challenges. climate change, energy crisis, space exploration, felt more tangible than ever before. The arrival of the aliens had already started to inspire change on Earth. In Millbrook, the game of dodgeball became a symbol of unity, a reminder that cooperation and creativity could bring about lasting change. The impact was not just felt by those who were directly involved. It rippled through the town and beyond, influencing communities across the globe. Young people, particularly, began to see themselves as part of a larger, more interconnected world. What had seemed like a random event, a game on a Tuesday afternoon, had sparked a global movement. Students everywhere embraced the idea of working together to solve problems, inspired by the example set by our interaction with the aliens. This new spirit of collaboration was evident in the educational systems as well. Schools began to implement curricula that emphasized global cooperation, critical thinking, and creativity. Governments, once divided by politics and borders, started to view the alien encounter as an opportunity to come together as one unified global force. And the aliens, ever the observers, continued to share their wisdom, offering guidance on how humanity could move forward with strength and resilience. Despite the progress, challenges remained. The question of how to integrate alien technology into Earth's infrastructure was a complicated one. While the aliens had offered their knowledge and assistance, their technology was so advanced that it was difficult to fully comprehend its applications. Some governments were eager to incorporate alien advancements in energy, medicine, and space travel, while others feared that doing so too quickly could result in unintended consequences. There was a fine line between embracing change and ensuring that humanity retained control over its future. The aliens were patient, offering their guidance but never imposing their will. They understood that the Earth was still learning to trust them, and they respected that. They had traveled across the stars for eons, and they were willing to take the time needed to build genuine, lasting relationships. In the meantime, they continued to learn from humanity, respecting our independence and the unique way in which we approached problems. I remember one particular conversation with one of the alien visitors who had become a regular part of the discussions between our species. He had watched us work, studied our dynamics, and had begun to offer his thoughts on the process. "You are a resilient species," he had said, his voice measured and calm. "You face challenges head-on, often with little more than your creativity and your belief in each other. This is what makes you unique. Your ability to come together as a group, to put aside differences, and to solve problems. This is the true strength of humanity." His words were profound, and they resonated deeply with me. As we continued our interactions with the aliens, I began to realize that they weren't just giving us knowledge. They were learning from us too. They were watching how we approached adversity, how we struggled and succeeded, and how our greatest achievements often came from the simplest of ideas. The future was filled with uncertainty, but the partnership between humans and aliens had shown me something powerful. It wasn't about who was stronger or smarter. It was about the willingness to learn, to collaborate, and to understand one another. As the aliens continued to share their knowledge and humanity found new ways to apply that knowledge, it became clear that the bond between us was stronger than any technological advantage. We were facing the unknown together, and the possibilities seemed endless. The promise of exploration, not just of the stars, but of each other's cultures, ideas, and strengths, was a future worth striving for. The game of dodgeball was now a symbol of that commitment, a reminder that even in the most unexpected of places, unity could be achieved, and that unity was the key to creating a future where both humanity and aliens could thrive. And so, as humanity stood on the precipice of a new era, it wasn't just about the alien technology or the scientific discoveries. It was about a partnership that transcended the physical and intellectual boundaries between species. It was about mutual respect, understanding, and the shared belief that together we could build a better future. The possibilities were limitless, and we had only just begun to explore them. The dawn of a new era. Months had passed since that fateful day on the dodgeball field, and the world was no longer the same. What had once been a routine Tuesday afternoon had transformed humanity's place in the universe. People had started thinking about the future differently. The promise of interstellar cooperation with an alien species had sparked a new sense of hope, a belief that even the most impossible challenges could be overcome when we worked together. But with this newfound optimism came responsibility, a duty to ensure that our newfound allies, and the knowledge they brought, would be integrated thoughtfully into our world. The aliens had kept their word. They didn't come to impose their will upon us, but to offer guidance, to provide insights that could help humanity navigate the future. Over time, more alien ships arrived, each carrying new members of their species, each offering their unique expertise. They didn't just come as teachers, they came as collaborators, eager to learn and grow alongside us. And in return, we share our achievements, our struggles, and our dreams for the future. But while the atmosphere of collaboration was palpable, there were still lingering questions. Was this partnership sustainable? What would happen when we faced our first true crisis together? Something that tested not just our unity, but our resolve. The excitement of first contact, of the novelty of alien technology, had begun to settle, and now the real work began. The challenges were larger than ever, and as we worked together to address them, we realized that the strength of the alliance was not just in the exchange of knowledge, but in the way we overcame obstacles together, learning from each other, relying on each other's strengths. The aliens' technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever imagined. Their ships, capable of interstellar travel, allowed them to visit planets across the galaxy. Their understanding of medicine had already revolutionized healthcare, with the introduction of healing technologies that could regenerate tissue and cure previously untreatable diseases. But these advancements, though awe-inspiring, also brought challenges. It wasn't enough to simply adopt their technology. We had to figure out how to adapt it to our own systems, how to make it work in a way that was beneficial for everyone, and how to ensure that the balance of power didn't tip in one direction. There were still some who feared the changes the aliens brought. They worried that their technological superiority would lead to humanity's dependence, that we might lose our identity in the process. Some governments were hesitant, unsure of how much to trust the aliens' offers of assistance. They questioned their motives. Were the aliens truly here to help, or were they simply laying the groundwork for a future where they would become the dominant force in our world? To address these fears, the aliens held a series of open forums across the globe. These forums were designed not just to explain their technology, but to listen, to answer questions, to ease concerns, and to ensure that humanity was an equal partner in every aspect of this relationship. It wasn't just about alien knowledge. It was about creating a transparent, mutually respectful alliance. Their approach was calculated, and yet deeply personal. They listened with an openness and patience that reflected the values they had shared with us since the very first moment they arrived. I remember sitting in one of these forums, alongside scientists, world leaders, and ordinary citizens, as an alien ambassador spoke. He wasn't speaking from a place of power or superiority, but from a place of humility and respect. "We have traveled far," he said, his voice calm but with a hint of warmth. "And we have seen countless worlds, but what we have seen in you, humans, is unlike anything we have ever encountered. Your ability to create, to dream, and to work together for the common good is something rare in the cosmos. You possess something we cannot give you. That is why we are here, not as conquerors, but as partners. We offer what we have learned, but we also want to learn from you. We are not here to replace your world, but to help you expand it." His words resonated deeply with everyone in the room. This wasn't about domination. This wasn't about control. This was about cooperation. Genuine, reciprocal cooperation. The aliens were not here to take over. They were here to help us rise to the challenges of the future, to assist us in building a world where both species could thrive. They were willing to share their wisdom, but only if we were willing to meet them halfway, to embrace the unknown with courage and openness. After the forum, There was a palpable shift in the global atmosphere. There was a renewed sense of optimism, yes, but more importantly, there was a sense of responsibility. We weren't just welcoming the aliens into our world. We were forging a future together. And that meant that we would have to rise to the occasion. The human race had always been known for its resilience, its capacity for ingenuity, and its ability to adapt. But now we were being asked to evolve, to embrace a broader perspective, one that included not just the Earth and its inhabitants, but the entire cosmos. As we worked alongside the aliens, we began to understand the true scope of what was at stake. We were no longer isolated. We were part of a larger community, a vast network of civilizations that spanned the stars. Our mistakes, our triumphs, our challenges were no longer ours alone. They were shared by others, and that knowledge carried with it both a sense of awe and a deep responsibility. There were moments of frustration, of course. There were hurdles to overcome. Technical difficulties in integrating alien technology, cultural misunderstandings, the lingering fears of those who were resistant to the changes. But with every challenge we faced it together. Humanity and the aliens worked side by side, learning from each other and strengthening our bond. Perhaps one of the most profound changes occurred in the way we approached the future. No longer was the future something to fear, something we had to navigate alone. It was something we could shape together, something we could create with the lessons of the past and the promise of the future. The knowledge and technology the aliens offered were only a part of the equation. The real power lay in our ability to work together, to think beyond our individual worlds, and to tackle the problems that no one species could solve on its own. The aliens taught us many things. They taught us the importance of patience, of understanding, and of looking beyond our own narrow perspective. But perhaps the most important lesson they imparted was that we were capable of far more than we had ever imagined. We had the capacity to change, to grow, and to build a future that was far beyond our own comprehension. And so, as I stood on the field that had once been the site of an unexpected game of dodgeball, I looked around and saw a future that was no longer defined by fear or uncertainty. It was defined by possibility. The stars were no longer distant, unreachable points of light. They were now within our reach. Together, we could explore them. Together, we could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The game had ended, but the journey had just begun. The bond between humanity and the alien species was more than just a collaboration. It was a new way of thinking, a new way of being. And as I looked toward the stars, I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of hope. We were no longer alone. We had partners, allies, and friends in the vastness of the universe. And with that knowledge, anything seemed possible. The journey ahead was uncertain, but it was a journey we would take together. Humanity and the alien species, side by side, ready to face whatever the universe had to offer. And that, more than anything, was the true victory.